Welcome to Part 3 of the AWS Control Tower Detective Controls Lab, brought to you by Cloud Architect Pro on the Nimbus Nebula channel. In today's session, we'll dive into enabling, validating, and remediating a detective control in AWS Control Tower. Imagine a world where your sensitive data is constantly monitored and protected. That's the power of AWS Control Tower's detective controls. In this lab, we'll dive deep into these safeguards, ensuring your cloud environment remains secure and compliant. By the end of this lab, you'll know how to manage non-compliant resources and configure email notifications for compliance changes. Stay tuned. Part 4 is on the way. Before we dive into detective controls, let's start with the basics. What are controls in AWS? Controls in AWS are high-level rules designed to establish governance across your cloud environment. They ensure compliance with your organization's policies, security standards, and regulatory requirements. AWS Control Tower simplifies this by offering fully managed controls that adapt automatically as AWS services evolve. These controls fall into 3 categories. Detective controls, spot and report non-compliance. Proactive controls, ensure compliance before resources are created. Preventive controls, block actions that violate policies. With over 360 pre-configured controls, AWS Control Tower saves time and effort, making it easy to scale governance and meet operational, security, and compliance requirements. Let's dive into today's lab scenario. Your company is building a cloud-native payments application that uses Amazon S3 to store sensitive cardholder data. To ensure compliance with payment card industry data security standards, PCI DSS, a set of rules designed to protect credit card information, you'll use AWS Control Tower to enforce key controls. By the way, PCI DSS is a security framework designed to protect credit card data from theft or fraud. Think of it as a checklist businesses must follow to ensure customer payment information stays secure. Detective control, maintain log file integrity, PCI DSS 10.515. This acts like a watchdog for your logs. It ensures no one tampers with system logs, which track user activities. If any changes are made, the system raises an alert. Think of it as having a security camera monitoring the logs to ensure they stay accurate. Proactive control. Enforce SSL for S3 requests, PCI DSS 8.2.1. This requires all communication with your S3 storage to be encrypted using SSL. Imagine it as requiring everyone entering a building to have a secure badge. SSL keeps sensitive information, like passwords or credit card details, safe from eavesdroppers during transmission. Preventive control. Prevent unencrypted S3 buckets, PCI DSS 8.2.1. This prevents anyone from creating storage buckets that don't encrypt data. It's like enforcing a rule that all valuables must be stored in locked safes. Even if someone accesses the storage, the encryption ensures they can't read the data without the key. Detective controls are like vigilant security guards, constantly scanning your AWS environment for potential threats and vulnerabilities. They identify non-compliant resources and alert you to take action. Think of them as smoke detectors. They don't prevent fires, but they alert you to a problem so you can take immediate action. In this lab, we focus on detective controls in AWS Control Tower, which allow you to monitor compliance with governance and security policies across your environment. We will be enabling the AWS S3 versioning enabled control, which ensures that versioning is enabled on all Amazon S3 buckets within a specified organizational unit, OU. This is a critical control for maintaining proper data retention and auditing practices, which are essential for compliance frameworks like PCI DSS. Now we will show to find and enable the detective control AWS S3 versioning enabled, a vital step in maintaining data integrity and compliance. Let's begin by locating the control in the AWS Control Tower console. Navigate to the AWS Control Tower console from the Management account. Open the Controls Library section and click on Categories. Under Control Objectives, select Improve Availability. Now, in the Find Control search box, click Service. Select Equals, and then choose Amazon S3. Again, in the Find Control search box, click Behavior. Select Equals, and then choose Detective. Refine the results further by typing versioning into the search box. You will find the control named AWS GRS3 versioning enabled. Detect whether versioning for Amazon S3 buckets is enabled. Pro tip for a quicker method. In the Find Controls search box, simply type S3. This will bring up the control AWS GRS3 versioning enabled directly. Regardless of the approach, you will find the detective control efficiently. Now let's proceed to enable the control. Click the Control Actions button located at the top right corner of the screen. In the pop-up menu, select the radio button next to the sandbox OU. Click Enable Control on OU. Navigate to the OU's Enabled tab to track the control's status. The Enable state will initially display as enabling. This process may take a few minutes. Once the operation completes, the state will change to Enabled for the sandbox OU. Now, navigate to the organization in the left-hand pane. Open the sandbox OU. Scroll down to the Controls section and paste the name of the control that we previously enabled into the search box. AWS GRS3 versioning enabled. Detect whether versioning for Amazon S3 buckets is enabled. Notice that the state on current OU status is enabled. By following these steps, you've successfully enabled the AWS GRS3 versioning enabled control, ensuring that your S3 buckets comply with versioning requirements. Verify control status. Next, let's validate that the control has been successfully deployed using AWS CloudFormation stack sets. Navigate to the AWS CloudFormation console in the Management account and look for stack sets. In the search box, type versioning and hit Enter. You will see a stack set with a name that is very similar to the detective control enabled earlier, AWS GRS3 versioning enabled. Open the stack set and choose the Stack Instances tab. In the Stack Sets Instances tab, you should see your sandbox account listed. This confirms that the CloudFormation stack, which includes the AWS config rule, has been applied to this account. Now let's switch to the sandbox account, Test Account 1. In the AWS Access portal, click AWS Administrator. Access under Test Account 1 to switch directly to the sandbox account. Once in Test Account 1's AWS Management console, navigate to the CloudFormation Service console. In the CloudFormation stacks list, locate the stack with a name similar to StackSet AWS Control Tower Guardrail, AWS GRS3 versioning enabled. Review the stack's description, which states, configure AWS config rules to check whether versioning is enabled for your S3 buckets. This stack was deployed automatically when we enabled the AWS GRS3 versioning enabled detective control, ensuring that AWS config monitors compliance with versioning requirements for your S3 buckets. Testing the control. Now, let's put the AWS GRS3 versioning enabled detective control to the test. Let's create an S3 bucket without versioning in the sandbox environment, which corresponds to Test Account 1. Navigate to the S3 service in the AWS Management console. Click the Create Bucket button. In the bucket name field, enter a unique name. I will enter the name as Non-versioned Bucket Demo. Scroll down to the Bucket Versioning section. Ensure that the Disable option is selected, as it is the default setting. Leave the other settings as default and click Create Bucket. The bucket will now be created without versioning enabled. This will trigger a non-compliance alert in the AWS config rule associated with the control AWS GRS3 versioning enabled. Now we can verify the S3 bucket property. Open the S3 console and locate your newly created bucket. Navigate to the Bucket's Properties tab. Confirm that bucket versioning is disabled, validating that the bucket is non-compliant with the control's requirements. Next, let's check compliance in AWS Config. Open the AWS Config console. In the Rules menu, you should now see one non-compliant resource under the Detective Compliance header. Click the rule AWS Control Tower AWS GRS3 versioning enabled. In the Rules Resources and Scope section, locate the S3 bucket you created. You'll see that the bucket is flagged as non-compliant because versioning was not enabled. We've explored how individual accounts can view the compliance status of their sandbox account using AWS Config. Now, let's shift our focus to reviewing compliance in the management account using the Control Tower dashboard. Switch to the management account and open the Control Tower dashboard. Scroll down to the non-compliant resources section. Here, you'll find a consolidated list of all non-compliant resources across your accounts. You should see the S3 bucket we created earlier listed here. Now let's review OU compliance. Scroll down to the Registered Organizational Units section. Notice that the compliance status of the Sandbox OU is marked as non-compliant. Scroll further to the Enrolled Accounts section. The compliance status of the account is displayed as non-compliant. Click on the account to open its details page and scroll down to view the list of non-compliant resources. Verify control compliance. Navigate to the All Controls section in the left pane. Enter the control we enabled earlier, AWS GRS3 versioning enabled, in the search box. Open the control, scroll down, and select the Accounts tab. The account will again be listed as non-compliant under this control. Remediating non-compliance is straightforward. In this case, we'll enable versioning on the non-compliant S3 bucket. For more complex scenarios, automation using AWS Lambda or similar tools may be required. Let's enable versioning in the S3 console. Navigate back to the S3 console. Open the properties of the non-compliant S3 bucket. Enable versioning and save the changes. Now let's check the compliance status in AWS Config. Navigate to the AWS Config console. Verify that the S3 bucket is now marked as compliant with the AWS GRS3 versioning enabled rule. Confirm compliance in AWS Control Tower. Finally, return to the AWS Control Tower dashboard to confirm the update. Check the compliance status for the Sandbox OU. It should now show as compliant. Subscribe to compliance notifications. Receiving timely notifications is essential for maintaining compliance. To ensure you are promptly alerted whenever a resource becomes non-compliant, we'll set up email notifications. AWS Control Tower uses Amazon SNS to send compliance notifications from AWS Config, with these notifications routed through Amazon SNS topics configured in the audit account, designated for centralized logging and compliance alerts. Let's access the AWS Access portal and log into the audit account. Navigate to the Simple Notification Service, SNS console. In the SNS console, click on the Topics tab. You will see 3 SNS topics created by AWS Control Tower for managing compliance notifications. Locate the topic named AWS Control Tower Aggregate Security Notifications and open it. This topic consolidates notifications from AWS Config about compliance, non-compliance, and changes to monitored resources. Scroll to the Subscriptions tab and click Create Subscription. Protocol. Select Email. Endpoint, enter your email address where you wish to receive notifications. For example, we will use the pink-themed Gmail address, auditing@nimbusnebula.com, associated with my audit account. Click Create Subscription to finalize. Once set up, you will begin receiving compliance notifications directly to the specified email address, ensuring you stay informed about resource compliance statuses. Check your email inbox for a subscription confirmation message from Amazon SNS. Open the email and click the Confirm Subscription link to activate the subscription. It may take a few minutes for the email to arrive. Once confirmed, you will start receiving compliance notifications whenever resources become non-compliant. This ensures you're always informed and can act promptly to remediate issues. Disabling unnecessary controls is a crucial step to reduce overhead and minimize potential security risks. Let's walk through the process of disabling the control and ensuring all associated resources are cleaned up. Now, switch back to the management account and open the Control Tower Service Console. Navigate to the Organization section. Open the Sandbox OU. Scroll down to the Controls section and paste the name of the control that we previously enabled into the search box. AWS GRS3 versioning enabled. Detect whether versioning for Amazon S3 buckets is enabled. Notice that the state on the current OU status is enabled. Click on the control name to open the control details. Select the OU's Enabled tab. Select the radio button next to the Sandbox OU. Now click on the yellow button Control Actions and then Disable. After a short period, the control will be removed from the OU and you will see a verification message at the top of the dashboard. Congratulations! You've successfully completed Part 3 of this lab. Today, we covered enabling and validating a detective control, remediating non-compliant resources, optionally subscribing to compliance notifications, and disabling the control once done. For cleanup, make sure to delete the S3 bucket you created and unsubscribe from the SNS topic if you opted into notifications. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for Part 4 coming soon on the Nimbus Nebula channel.